Arsenal didn't just lose a cup final, they lost it in a way that tells us something much more important about where this club actually is right now. And before this video is done, I am going to show you exactly what that is, because most of the conversation around this defeat has completely missed the real story. I'll be honest with you, sitting watching that second half, there was a moment where I thought we've seen this before. Not the scoreline, not the occasion, but that feeling. That slow creeping sense that the game was slipping away and Arsenal had no clear way back into it. If you felt that too, you were not imagining it. And today I want to explain exactly why that feeling was correct. Because if you watched that Carabao Cup final and came away thinking Arsenal was simply unlucky, that a couple of injuries made the difference, and that's the whole story, I want to challenge that, not to be negative, not to write off what is still a remarkable season, but because the truth of what happened at Wembley matters far more to Arsenal's chances of winning something this year than the result itself. There is one specific detail from this match that I have not seen anyone properly explain yet. We will get to it, but first, let's make sure the foundation is right. So let's get into it properly, and I mean properly. Let's start with what we actually know, because context is everything here. Arsenal went to Wembley without Jurrien Timber, without Eberechi Eze, and without captain Martin Odegaard, who is still working his way back to full fitness. Now, on paper, you note those absences, you acknowledge them, and you move on. Players get injured, that's football. Every manager deals with it at some point during the season. But here is where it gets interesting, and this is something I want you to keep in mind as we go through this, because it connects to something much bigger later. Those three players are not interchangeable squad members. They are not simply depth options who happen to be unavailable. Each one of them performs a structurally specific function inside Arteta's system. And when you remove all three simultaneously for a cup final against the most tactically sophisticated side in English football, you are not simply missing players. You are missing the mechanisms that make the entire system function. This detail matters more than people realise, and I will show you exactly why in a moment. Think about it this way. Timber gives Arsenal the athleticism and defensive intensity on the right side that allows them to press aggressively without leaving dangerous spaces behind. Timber provides the unpredictability in the final third, the ability to carry the ball into tight areas, draw fouls, create moments of individual quality that no defensive shape can fully plan for. And Odegaard is the tempo controller. He decides when Arsenal push, when they hold, when they recycle, and when they accelerate. He is, in the most straightforward sense, the brain of the operation. Without those three, Arsenal were a system missing three of its most important components. The question was never whether that would matter. The question was always how much. But here is what nobody is asking, and it is the question that changes how you read this entire defeat. Why does Arsenal always start these big games with real intent, create their clearest chances early, and then gradually fade until they are no longer the team in control of the game? This is not just about one cup final. This is about a pattern, a repeating, measurable pattern. And once I lay it out for you, I think it will change how you watch Arsenal for the rest of this season. We saw it clearly at Wembley. Arsenal were the better side in those opening stages. The energy was there, the pressing was working, the chances came. And then somewhere around that 35th minute, something shifted. This is where things changed. City got the ball, City kept the ball, and Arsenal's ability to do anything meaningful about it just seemed to drain away. Victor Gyökeres himself described it after the game. He said it was maybe 10 minutes before the break where City got the momentum that they had the ball a long time from that point, and it looked the same in the second half. That is a player being honest, and I genuinely appreciate that honesty. But what he is actually describing, whether he intends to frame it this way or not, is a structural problem. Not a personnel problem on the day, not a single tactical adjustment that went wrong. A structural problem with how Arsenal are currently built to sustain a game at the highest level. Stay with me here, because the explanation for why this keeps happening is not what most people think. So let's break down what is actually happening here, because this is where the real analysis lives. Arsenal's system under Arteta is built on high-intensity pressing. It is relentless, coordinated, and when it is firing on all cylinders, it is one of the most difficult systems to play against in European football. The press disrupts opponents, forces errors, wins the ball in dangerous positions, and generates the momentum that Arsenal convert into attacking opportunity. But that kind of pressing carries a cost that is easy to underestimate. It is physically and cognitively demanding in a way that most systems simply are not. It requires every outfield player to be working at near maximum output for sustained periods. And when the players specifically suited to executing those movements are missing, the press loses its coordination. The triggers stop firing at the right moments. The second line of pressure doesn't arrive when it should. And suddenly the system that was suffocating City in the opening 15 minutes is no longer functioning as a connected unit. Here is the part most viewers missed, and this is where my view on this game genuinely shifted when I went back through it. City did not need to play particularly brilliantly to take control. They just needed to wait, keep the ball, stay patient, and let Arsenal's energy levels do the work for them. That is not a coincidence. That is a game plan, a deliberate, experienced, precisely executed game plan. And it worked because City understand better than almost anyone in European football right now exactly where Arsenal's ceiling is. But how does City know where that ceiling is? That is the more important question. And the answer tells us something significant about the state of this rivalry, something I want to come back to before the end of this video. Now here is where I want to go deeper, because this next part is what most people are not talking about. And honestly, this surprised me when I went back through the data properly. That 35th minute momentum shift is not a random occurrence in a single cup final. Go back and look at Arsenal's performances in high-stakes matches across the past 2 seasons. There is a recurring window. It tends to emerge somewhere between the 30th and 40th minute of each half. It is the point where Arsenal's pressing intensity reaches its natural limit, where the legs get that little bit heavier, the distance is closed slightly slower, and the coordination between units begins to drift just enough to be exploitable. Keep that window in mind. We will come back to it when we talk about what is coming in the next 8 weeks, because it has direct implications for the title race, the FA Cup and Europe. Now, every elite pressing side in world football has this window. It is not unique to Arsenal. What separates the very best is what they do when that window arrives. Do they have a plan B? Can they shift into a different phase of the game and remain genuinely competitive? Can they manage the ball, absorb pressure and reset without conceding control of the entire match? And here I have to be direct with you, and this is the part that genuinely surprised me when I went back through the footage. Arsenal right now cannot do that consistently. When the press stops working, there is no clearly defined alternative structure that takes over with any real authority. They do not smoothly transition into a possession phase that allows them to control the game at lower intensity. They try to press again. When that doesn't work, they try again, and City simply keep the ball and wait for the next opportunity. That is the hidden story of the Carabao Cup final. Not that City were brilliant, but that Arsenal had no reliable answer once their primary weapon became unavailable. But this is where everything shifts, because there is a quote from Gyökeres after the game that nobody has properly analysed. And when you hear it through an analytical lens, it tells you far more about Arsenal's situation than the scoreline ever could. He said that the players who came in for those who were injured did well. He said Arsenal have a great squad, and look, I have no doubt he believes that. In terms of effort and commitment on the day, he is probably right, but when you look at what actually happened on the pitch, the analysis tells a slightly different story, and I think this specific gap between what was said and what was visible on the pitch is one of the most important things to understand right now. Arsenal's depth, when exposed at the highest level, does not sustain the system the way the first team does. The players who came in were not able to replicate the specific structural functions that Timber, Eze and Odegaard each perform. And I want to be clear, that is not a criticism of those individuals. That is a structural reality of how precisely Arteta's system is calibrated. This is actually a fascinating tactical problem, and it is one that directly affects what happens over the next 2 months, which I will explain shortly. When you build a system of remarkable precision, you create something capable of genuinely brilliant football. The trade-off is that the system requires remarkable precision to operate. When the specific components are missing, the machine runs differently. And at this level, running differently means losing control of matches against sides like City. Let's say it's Arsenal's squad depth problem in its truest form. Not that the players behind the first 11 are poor, but that they are not yet fully equipped to replicate what the first 11 does inside this particular system. Until that changes, big game fragility remains a real and measurable vulnerability. Let me give you my clearest analytical position on this, because I think it is important to state it plainly. And this connects directly to something I mentioned at the beginning that we have not fully resolved yet. The single biggest risk to Arsenal's season right now is not Manchester City. It is not the fixture schedule. It is not form or momentum or psychology, although all of those things carry weight. The single biggest risk is the gap between Arsenal's starting 11 and the squad operating behind it. Every supporter watching that second half on Sunday felt it, that sense that the team were trying, competing, giving everything, but that something fundamental was missing. That is not a feeling, that is a structural reality showing itself in real time. If Arsenal stay healthy, they are genuine contenders for the Premier League title, the FA Cup and the Champions League. The 9-point lead is real, the quality in that first 11 is undeniable. Guy Odegaard is leading the line with real presence, the creativity and control in midfield. The defensive structure, when it is fully functioning, all of that is genuinely elite level. But football does not guarantee fitness, especially not over the final 10 weeks of a season where you are competing across 3 major competitions simultaneously. And every time a key player misses a significant game between now and May, Arsenal face the same fundamental question they faced at Wembley. Can the system hold without its most important components? Based on what we saw on Sunday, the honest answer is not reliably enough. And now I want to address the bigger picture, because this is the part of the conversation that I think matters most, and it is the answer to that question I left open earlier about how City know Arsenal so well. Manchester City have now closed a significant points gap on Arsenal in the Premier League in 2 of the last 3 seasons. 2 out of 3. That is not bad luck. That is not coincidence. That is accumulated tactical and psychological knowledge about exactly how to compete with this specific Arsenal team at this specific moment in their development. This detail matters more than the headlines have acknowledged, and once you see it clearly, it reframes what Arsenal need to do between now and May. City know the window where Arsenal's energy fades. They know the personnel that Arsenal cannot adequately replace. They know how to make the game a test of endurance rather than explosive intensity. And they have proved repeatedly that Arsenal have not yet found a consistent answer to that approach at the highest level. Now, the 9-point lead means City need a near-perfect run and Arsenal needs something close to a significant collapse for the title to change hands. That remains the unlikely scenario, but it is no longer an impossible one. And the fact that we are even having this conversation in a season where Arsenal have been the best team in England for large stretches of the campaign tells you everything about the mental weight that comes with being Arsenal right now. 6 years without a trophy, a generation of supporters who have given everything to follow this team through near misses, final day heartbreaks and almost moments that seem to always stop just short. If you were watching that second half and felt the weight of all of that sitting on your chest, I understand it completely, because that is real, that history is real, and this squad carries it whether they acknowledge it publicly or not. That weight does not disappear after a defeat, it accumulates, and whether this squad is mentally equipped to carry that weight through the next 2 months across 3 competitions is a question nobody can answer yet, including me. Gyökeres says they will be more motivated after this. And I believe he means every word of it. But here is the thing, motivation without structural solutions tends to produce the same result. And the solution Arsenal need right now is not emotional. It is tactical. Which brings us to what actually happens next, because this is where the season either opens up or closes down. The immediate priority has to be the returns of Odegaard and Timber. Arteta has indicated Odegaard could be available after the international break, and Timber is optimistic about his recovery timeline. If both return close to full fitness in the coming weeks, Arsenal's system returns to something approaching full operating capacity. And at full capacity, this team is capable of winning the Premier League, making a deep run in the FA Cup, and competing seriously in Europe. The first game back after the international break becomes a significant psychological reset moment, not just the results, the manner of the performance. How Arsenal carry themselves, whether the hunger is visible, whether the structure reasserts itself, that will tell us a great deal about how this group has genuinely processed Wembley. Watch that game carefully. It will tell you more about this Arsenal side than almost anything else this season. The FA Cup quarter-final is next in that competition. The Champions League quarter-final draw will define what that European path looks like. Both will almost certainly demand a level of performance that Arsenal could not produce in the second half on Sunday, which means the personnel question follows them directly into the next phase of the season. And City will not stop. This is Manchester City. They do not have convenient bad runs at this point in the season when trophies are on the line. The assumption must be that the 9 points will be tested seriously. The assumption must be that the 9 points will be tested seriously. Let me leave you with this thought because I think it is the most important one, and it connects back to everything we have built through this entire analysis. Arsenal losing the Carabao Cup final is not the end of the story. It might not even be the most important chapter of this season. What Wembley actually did was expose in the most high-profile setting possible exactly what Arsenal's limitations look like when they are under genuine pressure without their most important players. That information is uncomfortable, but it is valuable, because the question now is whether Arteta and this squad can look clearly at what happened and find a real answer, not just emotionally, tactically, structurally. The greatest sides in football history did not win trophies simply because they possessed the best players on the day. They won because they found ways to perform when conditions were difficult, when the system was under stress, when the game did not unfold according to plan. Arsenal are not that team yet. They are close, genuinely close, closer than they have been in a very long time. The talent is there, the structure is there when it functions at full capacity, but the resilience, the plan B, the ability to control a game when the press has run out of energy and the crowd is quiet and the opposition has momentum, that part is still being built. The next 8 weeks will define whether this season is remembered as the year Arsenal finally delivered or the year they came closer than ever and still found a way to fall just short. The analysis says the talent is there. The analysis also says the work is not finished. Now, I want to hear from you because you were watching that game too. Did you see the same patterns I am describing? Do you think Arsenal can hold that 9-point lead? And honestly, do you believe this squad has what it takes to go all the way this season? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And we will be back with more as this season builds towards what could be the biggest weeks in Arsenal's recent history. Stay with us.